Welcome back, everyone, to Good Vibration Therapy. We're diving deep today, folks, into a fascinating principle from James N. Newberry's book, Magnetic Habits.
Yeah, this one's pretty interesting.
Have you read it?
Oh yeah, I have a copy. It's on my desk, actually.
Well, perfect. I'm sure our listeners would love to hear your take on this because we talk a lot on the show about raising those vibrations for a better life.
Absolutely. And this concept we're going to talk about today ties into that in a really profound way.
Okay, so give us a little teaser. What's this principle all about?
Well, in a nutshell, it's about saying good when things go wrong.
Whoa, hold on, really? Good. When things go wrong. That sounds a little counterintuitive, doesn't it?
I know, right? It kind of threw me off at first, too, but stick with me here. There's actually some powerful science behind it.
Okay. I'm intrigued. Lay it on us.
So you know how when we experience a setback, our natural reaction is to feel frustrated or disappointed, right?
Yeah, big time. It's like our brains immediately go into this negative spiral.
Exactly. And what's happening is our brains are basically going into threat mode, triggering the release of stress hormones like cortisol.
Ah, cortisol, the infamous stress hormone. We've talked about that before in the show.
Huh. Exactly. And while cortisol is helpful in truly dangerous situations, it can be really overwhelming when it's constantly triggered by everyday stressors.
It's like our bodies are stuck in this fight or flight mode, even when there's no real danger present.
Yeah, and that can lead to all sorts of problems: anxiety, fatigue, burnout, you name it.
So how does saying good help with all of that?
Okay, so here's where it gets interesting. Saying good is a form of what's called positive reframing.
Positive reframing.
Yeah, basically it means that instead of focusing on the negative aspects of a situation, we're consciously choosing to look for the opportunity within the challenge.
So it's not about pretending that everything's okay when it's not. It's about shifting our perspective.
Exactly. We're not denying the negative, but we're also not letting it define us.
It's like looking for the silver lining.
Yeah, exactly. And the amazing thing is that this shift in focus can actually have a real impact on our brain chemistry.
Okay, now we're talking.
Yeah.
My ears perked up when you said brain chemistry. Tell me more.
So when we say good, it can actually trigger the release of dopamine.
Dopamine, the feel-good neurotransmitter.
That's the one. So we're basically hacking our own happiness by intentionally triggering a dopamine response.
It sounds almost too easy.
Well, it does take practice. Think of it like building a new habit.
Ah, like training our brains to respond differently to challenges.
Exactly. The more we consciously choose to say good when faced with setbacks, the more natural this positive response becomes.
It's like we're rewiring our brains for resilience.
Precisely. We're creating new neural pathways that are associated with positivity and opportunity.
So instead of getting stuck in that negative spiral, we're creating a new path, a path that leads to a more empowered and positive state of being.
Exactly. And that's what raising your vibration is all about.
I love it. This is so powerful. So we're not just talking about changing our thoughts, we're talking about changing our brains, our physiology.
Absolutely. And the more we practice this, the more we strengthen those neural pathways associated with resilience and positive thinking. It's like building a muscle, but it's a muscle of the mind.
A mental muscle.
Mm.
Love it. So how does this concept of saying good relate to cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT? I know we have a lot of listeners who are familiar with CBT and its emphasis on the connection between thoughts, emotions, and behaviors.
Oh, that's a great question. You know, CBT provides a framework for understanding that connection and offers practical techniques for changing negative thought patterns, right? Well, saying good is like a mini CBT intervention in a way, because it's helping us interrupt that negative spiral and choose a more empowering perspective.
It's like we're becoming our own therapist in a sense.
Exactly. We're
Well,
taking control of our thoughts and choosing to focus on what empowers us rather than what disempowers us.
so we're not just reacting to situations, we're actively shaping our experience by choosing how we interpret them.
You got it. And the more we practice this, the more resilient we become.
Okay, let's talk more about resilience because that's such a crucial aspect of well-being. How does saying good help us build resilience?
Well, resilience is all about our ability to adapt and bounce back from challenges, right? And this good technique is like a resilience workout for our brains. It's about building that mental muscle that allows us to face adversity with a sense of optimism and confidence.
It's so easy to get caught up in that initial wave of negativity when things go wrong.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Our brains are wired to focus on threats and dangers. It's a survival mechanism.
Yeah.
But the thing is, we don't have to let that negativity consume us.
This is about consciously choosing to step out of that victim mentality and into a space of personal responsibility and empowerment.
Exactly. It's about saying, Okay, this happened, but I'm not going to let it define me. I'm going to choose how I respond.
It's about shifting from, why is this happening to me, to, what can I learn from this?
Powerful reframe, right?
Extremely powerful. But I think for a lot of people, the idea of saying good when something bad happens might feel a little inauthentic, like they're trying to force themselves to be positive when they don't actually feel that way.
I totally get that. And it's important to acknowledge that this isn't about suppressing our emotions or pretending that everything is okay when it's not. We're allowed to feel frustrated, sad, disappointed. Those are all valid emotions. But it's about what we do with those emotions. Do we let them consume us, or do we choose to look for the opportunity, the silver lining, however small it may be?
So it's not about toxic positivity. It's about acknowledging the full spectrum of our emotions while also choosing to focus on what empowers us.
Exactly.
Okay, I love this concept. I'm already feeling my vibration rising just thinking about it.
Haha, me too. It's
It
contagious.
really is. So let's dive a little deeper into how this works in practice. How can our listeners actually start incorporating this good technique into their lives?
You bet. I got some practical tips and examples we can explore in our next segment.
Sounds good. We'll be right back after a quick break. Okay, so we're back and ready to dive into the practical side of this good technique. You mentioned you had some tips for our listeners.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I think the first step is awareness. Like just noticing your immediate reaction when you encounter a setback. What are your thoughts, your feelings, your physical sensations? Just observe. Don't judge yourself. Just become aware of what's happening within you.
It's like creating that space between the stimulus and the response.
Right.
Instead of just reacting automatically, we're pausing to become aware.
Exactly. That pause is where the magic happens.
I love that. So we're hitting the pause button on that knee-jerk reaction.
And once you've hit pause and become aware of that initial reaction, that's when you can introduce the good.
Okay, so we've noticed our reaction, we've hit pause, now we say good.
Yep. Say it out loud or silently to yourself. It might feel a little forced at first, but that's okay.
I can see how that might feel weird at first,
Yeah.
especially if you're really in that negative headspace.
Oh, absolutely. It
Yeah.
takes practice. Like anything new, it feels awkward at first, but the more you do it, the more natural it becomes.
Like we're training our brains to respond differently.
Exactly. And it's helpful to have some go-to reframes ready, like little mantras or affirmations that you can use to shift your perspective.
Ooh, I like that. Give us an example.
Okay, so let's say you're running late for work and you spill your coffee all over yourself. What's your initial reaction?
Oh my gosh, I'd be so frustrated. Probably some choice words too.
Right, total freak out mode.
Yeah.
But what if instead of going down that negative spiral, you say, good, now I have an excuse to try that new coffee shop I've been wanting to check out.
Okay, yeah. I can see how that would shift things.
Yeah.
It's like finding the silver lining.
Exactly. And it doesn't have to be a big thing. It can be something small like, good, now I have a chance to practice my patience. Or, good, this is an opportunity to learn from my mistake.
It's about finding those little opportunities for a shift in perspective.
Precisely. And remember, it's a process. Be patient with yourself and celebrate those small wins along the way.
This is so powerful. I'm really excited to start incorporating this into my own life. So we're talking about changing our self-talk, interrupting those negative thought patterns, and choosing to focus on the good even when things are tough. But how does this tie back into the idea of raising our vibration, which is the core focus of this show?
Great question. When we talk about raising our vibration, we're essentially talking about cultivating a more positive and joyful state of being.
Right.
And that starts with our thoughts and beliefs. When we're constantly dwelling on the negative, our energy becomes heavy, stagnant.
It's like we're weighed down by those negative thoughts.
Exactly. But when we choose to focus on the good, when we practice gratitude, when we embrace challenges as opportunities for growth, that's when our energy starts to shift. We become lighter, more expansive, more aligned with that positive flow of life.
So it's about shifting our internal state, which then ripples outward into our external experience.
Exactly. And the good technique is a powerful tool for facilitating that internal shift. It's about consciously choosing to align ourselves with a more positive frequency.
I love that. So we're not just changing our thoughts, we're changing our energy, our vibration.
Exactly. And as we raise our vibration, we naturally attract more positive experiences into our lives.
So it's like we're becoming a magnet for good things.
Precisely. When our energy is high, we radiate positivity, and that attracts more positivity in return. It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
I love that concept. It's like what you focus on expands.
Exactly. If we're constantly dwelling on the negative, we're just attracting more negativity into our lives. But when we shift our focus to the good, to the things we're grateful for, to the opportunities for growth, That's when we start to see those positive changes manifest.
It's amazing how powerful our thoughts and beliefs really are. They shape our reality.
They really do. And the more we become aware of that, the more we can consciously choose to create a reality that is aligned with our highest good.
Okay, I'm totally on board with this.
Mhm.
So what about resilience? We talked about how this good technique helps us build resilience.
Yeah.
But can you expand on that a bit more?
Sure. So remember, resilience is all about our ability to adapt and bounce back from challenges, right? And this good technique is like a resilience workout for our brains. It's about building that mental muscle that allows us to face adversity with a sense of optimism and confidence.
I love that analogy. It's like we're training our brains to be more flexible and adaptable.
Exactly. And the more we practice this, the stronger that muscle becomes, the more we can handle whatever life throws our way.
So it's not about avoiding challenges altogether. It's about equipping ourselves with the tools and mindset to navigate them with grace and resilience.
You got it. It's about trusting that the universe has a plan, even when we can't see it in the moment.
Trusting the process, embracing the unknown.
Exactly. It's about letting go of that need to control everything and surrendering to the flow of life, knowing that even in the midst of challenges, there's a greater good unfolding.
It's about having faith that things are working out for us, even when it doesn't look that way on the surface.
That kind of faith, that unwavering belief in the goodness of life, is incredibly powerful. It can shift our entire perspective and open us up to a world of possibilities.
I love that. It's not just about changing our circumstances. It's about changing our internal state, our way of being in the world.
Precisely. And as we cultivate that inner peace, that joy, that resilience, it naturally radiates outward and influences everything we do.
It's like we become a beacon of positivity, inspiring others to raise their own vibration as well.
Absolutely. It's contagious.
So for our listeners who are ready to embark on this journey of raising their vibration, what's one piece of advice you would give them?
Start small. Don't try to overhaul your entire life overnight. Pick one area where you want to create positive change and focus on that. Maybe it's your self-talk, your relationships, your work, whatever feels most aligned for you.
That's great advice. And remember, it's a process.
Yeah.
There will be ups and downs, days when you feel like you're making progress and days when you feel like you're taking 2 steps back. But the key is to keep going, to keep practicing, to keep choosing that higher vibration, even when it's challenging.
And be kind to yourself along the way. Celebrate those small wins. Acknowledge your efforts. And remember that you're on a journey of growth and transformation. You're doing great.
Such an important reminder. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground today. We've talked about the science behind saying good, the practical steps for incorporating it into our lives, and the connection to raising our vibration. What are your final thoughts for our listeners?
My final thought is this. The next time you're faced with a challenge, remember to take a deep breath, say, good, and watch as your perspective begins to shift and new possibilities emerge.
Beautiful. I love that. Such a simple yet powerful practice.
It really is. And it can make all the difference in how we experience life.
I couldn't agree more. Well, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us today. This has been an incredible conversation.
My pleasure. I always enjoy these deep dives.
Me too. And to our amazing listeners, thank you for joining us on Good Vibration Therapy today. We hope this episode has inspired you to raise your vibration and live your best life. If you enjoyed this deep dive and are interested in empowering positive change, be sure to follow the show, share it with others, and leave a review or comment. Until next time, keep those good vibes flowing.